Hi, everyone, and welcome back to Time 100 Talks. I'm Edward Felsenthal, Editor-in-Chief and CEO of Time. If you haven't been with us before, Time 100 Talks is our new live event program where we bring together leaders from all over the world, from across fields, to spotlight solutions and encourage action and progress toward a better future. Today's program is the first of what we hope will be a series focused on the Asia-Pacific region. The COVID-19 pandemic and its far-reaching economic effects have, of course, changed so much about our world. As we work to reopen, we have an opportunity to create a world that is better and stronger, more just, healthier, and more resilient. Today's event will focus on those challenges, those opportunities, and on the importance of global cooperation as we rebuild from the pandemic. To discuss all of these issues today, we have with us first Kai-Fu Lee, Sinovation Ventures Chairman and CEO, and also one of the world's great experts in artificial intelligence. He'll talk about developments in tech, including AI, and how they'll reshape our future. The award-winning actor and advocate Ayushmann Khurrana will be with us to discuss his work in Bollywood and the power of film to help drive a path forward on social issues. We also have with us the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, Ban Ki-moon. He'll talk about the importance of global collaboration as we move forward. Tennis great Naomi Osaka is with us, and she'll talk about how athletes are stepping up in this moment, both in the pandemic and in the global fight for equality. And we'll have a few words and 2 special performances from the K-pop group, Monsta X. I'd like to thank our partner, DBS, for making these important conversations possible today. And now to get us started, here's Monsta X.
두 발이 묶인 듯 멈춰버린 시간 속에 뜨거워진 숨소리 날 바라보고 있어 가까워지려 하면 할수록 자꾸 멀어지는 기분이 들어 나를 밀어내지 말아줘 우리 물 위를 떠다녀 백조같이 모두가 부러워하는 시선을 받지 바람 한 점 없는 고요함 속에 두 다린 빨아져 아무도 모르게 꿈꿔왔던 지금 이 순간 속에 지쳐버린 너와 난 말이 없네 괜찮아 이제 괜찮아 그대로 내 곁에 있어줘 그저 흘러가는 대로 내버려도 붙잡고 싶어도 가끔 너무 지치고 힘들어서 미쳐 끝까지 차오를 때 쉽사리 놓지 못한 내 모든 걸 참아 이대로 멈춰버리면 도태될까봐 아무렇지 않은 척해도 그렇지 않아 오늘도 괜찮다는 말만 하면 그냥 살아 I wanna be brave 내 자신에게 좀 더 솔직해지고 싶어 아무렴 어때 그저 흘러가는 대로 I'ma just wait for my next stop 우리 물 위를 춤추는 파도같이 모두가 부딪히는 부딪힘을 타지 바람 한 점 없는 고요함 속에 두 발은 빨라져 해보다 더 빠르게 꿈꿔왔던 지금 이 시간 속에 뒤틀려버린 너와 나 말이 없네 이대로 모든 게 멈춰도 괜찮아 이젠 괜찮아 네 곁에 내가 서 있을 테니까 그저 흘러가는 대로 머리도 원래 그랬단 듯이
그저 흘러가는 대로
우린 너무 많은 걸 붙잡고만 싶지
흘러가는 대로
잠깐 멈춰서서 숨을 가다듬고 다시 숨쉬어 수없이 반복되는 자주 속에 우리 갇혀 있기에 나가워 Let it flow like a water
그저 흘러가는 대로 내버려도 붙잡고 싶어도 가끔 너무 지치고 힘들어서 밑도 끝까지 차오를 때
Thank you, Monsta X, for that great performance. We look forward to hearing from you again later in the program. And now we're joined by my colleague, Times International Editor, Dan Stewart. Dan will be talking with Sinovation Ventures Chairman and CEO, Kai-Fu Lee, about how tech and artificial intelligence can help rebuild businesses and economies. Dan?
Thank you, Edward. My name is Dan Stewart, and I'm the International Editor for Time. I'm pleased to be joined today by Kai-Fu Lee. Kai-Fu has been at the forefront of AI innovation for over 3 decades at Apple, Microsoft, and Google, and today as an investor in Chinese tech startups. He knows what makes Silicon Valley tick, but also how Chinese innovators are catching up. Kai-Fu, thanks so much for joining us today. You're in Beijing, I understand?
Yes, great to be here, Dan. I'm in Beijing.
That's right. Well, I wanted to start today just by talking about the coronavirus is causing a huge global downturn and a massive transformation in the way that we live and work. Do you think this is going to be a moment when the development of AI stalls, or conversely, when it accelerates?
I think it will accelerate. First of all, AI today largely runs on data as the fuel. So that's why I often say data is the new oil. And the data that's been feeding AI prior to the pandemic are the internet access logs, the usage patterns on Amazon, Google, also autonomous vehicles, computer vision, Alexa are all collecting data, and AI learns from that data. So think about what happens in the pandemic. We are working from home. We are online. We are contributing to the process of digitization. So a lot of the people who used to go to work and still not fully digitized, that is by meetings, taking notes on paper, now it's becoming all digitized. And all that digital content becomes training data for AI. So AI could, for example, look at this session that you and I are having and learn more about my thoughts, your thoughts, and also learn more about human expression, emotion, articulation of speech, and all that will contribute to AI being able to do a very good job for people. For example, performing key functions like customer service, sales that are currently conducted online. AI will be able to do that. AI will be able to contribute a lot in these online activities and take over the routine tasks that we have. But also, the next big frontier for AI is got to be healthcare. And we're all now focused on whether it's use of AI in robots for delivery or using it for medical drug discovery or vaccine discovery. A lot of money is being pumped into AI healthcare. So that's another big one. And finally, there is the social distancing. So a lot of jobs that are a bit dangerous because they contact so many people, whether it's healthcare jobs in hospitals, waiters and waitresses in restaurants, and so on, we're seeing a very rapid replacement of those jobs by robot, currently for our safety. For example, when I was quarantined in Beijing, when I returned to Beijing, all my food and e-commerce and packages were delivered by robots to my doorstep. So it's accelerating that adoption and gradual. And even after the pandemic, we will really not go back to the way it was for all three of these types of habit forming.
Well, let me pick up on what you were saying about healthcare there, because one big concern we're all concerned about at the moment is getting past this stage where we are victims of the coronavirus. A big part of that is going to be testing. A huge part of that eventually is going to be the development of a vaccine. Very early on in the crisis, the White House made a call to action for the AI community to help analyze the literature that was being published on COVID-19, the data. Can you tell me what was the response like to that within the AI community that the White House have made a call like that?
I think the whole world is really trying to work together in using AI and data. And part of that, first part is contributing data. So there are a number of data sets that were being created. One was Kaggle, which is a part of Google. And these data sets were put online for amateurs and professionals alike to see who can do a better job of using AI to detect whether someone has COVID-19 or not, or using AI for various types of treatments, vaccine discovery. One of our companies that we invested in worked on using generative chemistry along with AI for faster discovery of possible ways to block the COVID-19 from functioning in one's body. So there are many examples like that. And I should say, however, because the pandemic is once a century kind of thing, the AI people didn't have a lot of practice. So we're just getting to be good at it. And I think the pace of innovation, acceleration, faster vaccine discovery, that will happen probably in the coming months. Last few months, a lot of it was just getting ready because it's not a task that's ever been done before by the AI community. But now I think the whole world is working together, which is also a very, very good thing.
Mm-hmm. You said before that this is going to accelerate this moment in AI. You've warned in your writing about the risk that comes with accelerated AI, right? The loss of blue collar jobs, the complete transformation of the labor market, and the things that we need to do to overcome that. Is there a risk if AI acceleration, if AI accelerates that much faster, that the opposite, the damage becomes that much worse?
As we accelerate the AI automating blue collar, white collar routine work, it will have two serious impacts on society. The first one is, of course, many jobs will be gone. And some people have lost their jobs. And in a few months, when they're ready to go back to work, they might find the jobs not there anymore. So it's just an employment issue exacerbated by COVID-19 and the use of automation. So that's, I think, a very significant problem. And another, perhaps even more serious problem is an exacerbation of wealth inequality. So we all know that tech tycoons probably made money in the last few months for various reasons, including the stocks are up and so on. But many of the people who lost their jobs are on the bottom 50%. And we already have a wealth inequality going on for the last 20 years, partly because of the computer and internet revolution. And now AI will make that go even faster. And I think COVID-19 will further accelerate that. So it's a big policy issue I think all governments have to look at.
Governments and businesses, right? I suppose it's on businesses as well to be retraining their workforces and education. Do you see that happening already at these big tech companies, both in the US and in China?
Yes, there are a few shining examples. Amazon actually provided a employee training subsidy of, I think, $12,000 for up to 4 years for job categories that might be disappearing for them to take on a new job. For example, someone who's a picker in an Amazon warehouse, or maybe a cashier at a Whole Food, and then they get training for free, subsidized by the company for things like aeronautic engineer, nursing, and so on. I think that's a great thing. I think all companies should look at that. Training is no longer just making someone better in what they do, but also when job categories are reduced or disappear, it's about getting new skills with a longer training, skills that cannot be automated. And I have to also acknowledge that not every company has the financial wherewithal that Amazon has. So we can't expect corporate to take care of the upcoming job changes, because not every company has that financial resource, and not every company has a multitude of jobs with an equilibrium, with an equal number going away and equal number being created. So the government has to step in, I believe.
Well, you've written a lot in your book as well about the differences between the technology industry in the US and the technology industry in China. You've said that innovation has sort of lagged behind in the US compared to China, especially in the field of AI. Do you think that this is going to change that element, that there's going to be more competitiveness coming out of the coronavirus?
It's very interesting. When I wrote my book, AI Superpowers, about 2 years ago, what I noticed was that the fundamental research innovations is where US led the world, and China was faster in implementing AI technologies, monetizing them, and creating value out of entrepreneurship and large companies using AI. So what has happened since the last 2 years is on China's side, Chinese research has advanced quite a bit. So if we look at the top 10% of all the best AI papers, now China produces almost an equal percentage as the US. So China's been growing on where it was weak. But interestingly, US has been growing on adopting, using AI in the actual day-to-day work. China was way ahead in things like mobile payment, food delivery, robotics for delivery, and things like that. But we also saw recently in the US, very quickly, people's habits were forming about ordering food from home, about use of robotics in various places, in using more mobile technologies, mobile payment. You know, companies like DoorDash and Grubhub and PayPal are really getting the limelight, and also Zoom and other companies doing video conferencing. That's an area US really led. So interestingly, I think both the US and China have made up for their weaknesses and are now charging forward. And I think that's a tremendous benefit to both Chinese and American consumers because their respective companies in their countries are now building great products that are benefiting our day-to-day lives.
Well, that's right. And, you know, at the same time as this is happening, obviously, relations at a sort of policy level, at a government level, have become more tense. Do you see in the industry that there's still an appetite for collaboration as well as competition between the US and China?
I think companies are generally very practical. So as long as there are no regulatory or legal restrictions, companies would like to work together. It makes sense to have a global supply chain and companies help building things that they're good at and depending on other companies for things that they're good at. But we also do see a increasing decoupling between US and China. So I think in the future, that will largely depend on how much government policies will basically force the companies to do the unnatural things, to do things. The decoupling is inefficient. However, it is, if it's part of a national policy for whatever reasons that each country may have, then it may have to be done. There are some very legitimate reasons. For example, countries want to have control of their own supply chain and not be beholden to another country during natural disasters like the pandemic. So I understand that, but the full decoupling I think is quite challenging. One area that I see a lot of collaboration and gives me a lot of hope is the research community. When you go to an AI conference, you really see Americans, Chinese, Europeans mixing together, sharing ideas openly, publishing instantly, and helping each other out with data sets and collaborations. So I do hope, even if the competition intensifies and there are regulations making it necessary to have some degree of decoupling, that the research can continue to move forward. Because after all, AI got to where it got to because we were all able to stand on the shoulders of giants. And these are giants from countries everywhere.
We're currently in a moment now where we're seeing protests against racial inequality, primarily in the United States, but also across the world. And this is an area where AI has had accusations leveled against it because AI is only as good as the data that goes into it, and data often has racial and gender biases that we don't see. What responsibilities do you think those working in the field have to ensure that AI is free of those kinds of biases?
I believe there's some awareness. The reason that there are some bias in most AI systems is because either the engineer, the product manager who built the product was unaware or didn't care about the issue. And the other possibility is that the data in itself is inherently unbalanced, let's say with more men than women, with more white men than Asian men, for example, then it could create a bias because it didn't have enough sample size. So what I think is incumbent on people in the AI community and engineering community to do is first to educate the engineers to know that it is their responsibility not just to build a good product and make money and help the users, but also ensure that the products don't have bias and that these biases can sift through really without care, just with some careless act, not intentional, malicious act, and that people have a responsibility to go the extra mile, that training of the engineers. The other is building tools that will watch AI products being built and alert the developer that if it sees there's an imbalanced data set, that it's not recognizing, let's say, African-American women as well, or that it's not giving older Asians a chance at a job. So tools that can alert the engineers, the other thing we can do. I think this is something I think affects the whole world. And I think that's a silver lining that will give people a wake-up call that it's our responsibility to do that, to remove bias in the systems.
You've written before, and I think it's commonly understood that over the past sort of 3 decades, AI has developed in sort of fits and starts, these sort of bursts of innovation followed by AI winters, I think, as you described them.
Yeah.
Do you still see us in a kind of, are we in a sort of perpetual summer of AI now, or do you see autumnal clouds on the horizon in the sort of next generation of AI development? I'm talking beyond machine learning here, and into the realm of, self-driving cars and some of the other kind of major applications of technology that would come with smart AI.
I think the next 10 years will be a very long summer of AI, where AI will find all kinds of opportunities to blossom in all kinds of industries. When we think about AI isn't just the human-like intelligence, behavior, recognizing, understanding speech and the people, and being able to have robots that move around that can think like people. That's the most advanced form of AI. There are many forms of simpler forms of AI applied to data science, helping financial institutions make more money, helping to do routine jobs with AI so that people can do more meaningful jobs. These data-oriented AI are arguably the largest lower hanging fruit that exists everywhere. Traditional companies have only adopted AI by about 4%. And when they adopt AI, we often see several percent, maybe even 10 or 20% improvement to the bottom line. So I really think that in the next 10 years, we're going to see adoption, one industry followed by another, the use of AI, starting with these simpler uses and gradually moving towards recognition, understanding, and autonomous vehicles and robots. And along the way, in the next 10 years, this will create about $16 trillion of net incremental GDP, as Price Waterhouse has forecasted. So I am a big optimist. Having said that, AI, like anything else, when there's too much excitement and optimism, it becomes hype, and the expectations become too high, the valuations become ridiculous, and it has to come down. So in this rise over time, I don't think it'll be a smooth line to the top, but there will be ups and downs. But the trajectory in the next 10 years will be a tremendous one of the largest periods of value creation by technology that we have ever seen.
So we've just got to be prepared for some summer storms along the way. All right. Well, thank you very much, Kai-Fu. I think that's all we have time for today. Really appreciate you talking to us today.
Great. Thanks a lot.
In a moment, we'll be joined by Time's Deputy International Editor, Naina Bajekal, who will be speaking with actor and advocate Ayushmann Khurrana about how socially conscious films can help spotlight undertold stories.
This is an apple. It's perfect and red and shiny. It has a good heart. This is also an apple. Not so perfect, red or shiny. But it's got a good heart too. See? One made it to the chef's table. The other one, the bin. What a waste.
Food comes in all shapes and sizes.
Okay.
All fresh meat, fruits, and veggies are created equal.
But I don't quite...
All it's trying to say, why waste perfectly good produce?
Not like that.
Gangster! These are the founders of Tree Dots, and these part-time heroes are full-time hustlers. They deliver this imperfect-looking fresh produce to walk chefs like Don.
Imperfect-looking produce
Equally good on the inside.
at lower cost.
That's just good business.
Tree Dots has a friend, a mentor, a guide. It's a bank, DBS Bank. They support businesses, businesses for good, and they want you to live more, waste less.
Hi everyone, I'm Naina Bajekal and I'm the Deputy International Editor at Time. I'm thrilled today to be joined by Indian actor Ayushmann Khurrana, who's carved a really fascinating career in Bollywood, often tackling important social issues in his movies. Thank you so much for being here today. We're really looking forward to hearing from you. There's a lot we'd love to cover, but I want to start by talking a bit about the current moment we're living through with the pandemic. Where are you now and how have you and your family been spending your time?
Yeah, it's been completely unprecedented. Nobody thought about it. And everybody is getting affected right from top to bottom. And this is the time we need to be together in this. And we have to be inclusive as a society so that we can fight this pandemic as one. That's about it. Of course, you have to be close to your parents, your family, your friends. Of course, we are following isolation or quarantining ourselves, but we have to be together through virtual medium. If you're staying alone, you have to be connected. That's the most important thing.
How have you been coping personally with the film industry being shut down? I know your latest film was released on Amazon Prime instead of in theaters. What was that experience like for you?
I come from a very conventional mindset because I've grown up watching films in theaters and cinemas. Of course, the digital platform is a new thing. I want families should get back to theaters by buying tickets and having that community viewing experience. Of course, we never expected that my last film, Gulabo Sitabo, will be going on an OTT platform. But nevertheless, getting great reviews. And I know this is the situation demands that we have to consume entertainment while sitting at home. But fingers crossed, we're just praying that things happen like they were before, and we could go back to theaters. And I would really want to be that guy, that actor who ushers the audience in the theaters again post the pandemic.
And what kinds of things have you been doing in the meantime to raise awareness or use your platform to support frontline staff? What do you think the role is of actors and other public figures at a time like this?
Definitely in our country, there are two big entities, cricket and cinema. Anybody who's associated with cricket and cinema they're looked up upon. They are put on a pedestal, and we are by default opinion leaders. And whatever we say, we do, people take it very seriously. So I guess we definitely should use social media in the right manner and encourage people, especially the frontline warriors. And I've been doing that. I'm also a poet. I've written a lot of poetry, poems, and about frontline warriors, also the migrant workers, the laborers who've been going back to their hometowns or the villages, the rural India. You know, India is a very complex country. 30% of our nation is the urban sector. 70% of our nation of India dwell in rural cities and towns and villages. So there's a lot of divide, a lot of schism between people staying in urban cities and rural areas. So we have to come together. And as I said earlier, that we have to be really inclusive. So as an actor, I've been using social media through my poetry. And also in the past, my films have dealt with social issues. And I guess that's the way it should be.
Thinking about those social issues, you started in 2012 with Vicky Donor, where you played a sperm donor. You've gone on to be the first A-list actor in Bollywood to play a gay man in a leading role. And then in Article 15 last year, you looked at the issue of caste-based discrimination. Article 15 of the Indian Constitution prohibits discrimination on the grounds of religion and race, caste, sex, as you know. What drew you to these kinds of subjects? And you mentioned the rural-urban divide in India. So given the influence that Bollywood has in both rural and urban society, kind of is that part of what your goal is in making these social-led films?
The films that I do, they are primarily known as the middle-of-the-road cinema. They are not, they don't follow the commercial formula of films. They are somewhere in between the art cinema and the commercial cinema. We tread the middle path. Because I guess there has to be a certain value addition with entertainment. It cannot be just value addition, otherwise it'll become a documentary. With Article 15, that was my first dark film, because the tonality, the texture, the germ of the content was really dark. It dealt with racism. Till now, there's been no commercial Hindi cinema dealing with the underprivileged section of society of our country. So Article 15 was that kind of film. Of course, starting with a film like a Vicky Donor in 2012, and also dealing with erectile dysfunction, body shaming, touching other issues, being the first commercial actor to touch the topic of homosexuality in India. I guess it comes with a great sense of responsibility, the kind of validation that I've got over the years from the critics as well as from the audience. And I'm really fortunate to work with great talented directors and script writers. So I guess it's again, my social responsibility as an actor. I come from a theater background, and we have made a lot of plays based on social issues. I've done a lot of street theater. Street theater is what we call Nautanki in India. It's a form that you go out to any place and collect people and start informing them and entertaining them at the same time by using drums, guitars, musical instruments, your voice. So there's no ready audience. So that the instinct of following the social responsibility comes from my theater background, I guess.
And India has been quite divided in recent months. Do you see a role for Bollywood doing more to tackle this and kind of bring people together? Do you think more directors and actors should be making films like this?
Definitely. I guess cinema has to resonate with people. We have to indulge in a lot of human stories. Whatever is happening in a country, you can definitely, it's a very give and take relationship between cinema and society in India. We take a lot from the society, and at the same time, it's our responsibility to give it back to the society. So it reflects, mirrors the society in a way. But at the same time, I don't want to dwell in the darkness of cinema. I really don't want to be a part of cinema showing what the society is. It could also be what society can become. Having that responsibility, I guess we have to choose subjects which are very close to the grassroots level, and it deals with the issues relating to the country, and show it in a very engaging and an entertaining way, so that it reaches the grassroots level again. Because if you're showing it to the critics or the art house lovers, it's like, again, you know, this just preaching to the converted. So that's not right, I guess.
Yeah, kind of going outside the bubble is, I think, part of
Yeah.
what this sort of work does. By putting topics like gay marriage, caste discrimination into the mainstream, I think it's probably clear that that's made marginalized people feel less alone. What role do you think that storytelling plays in building this better world? And are there other stories or issues you'd like to see told, or that you'd like to work on yourself?
There are a lot of stories in our country. We have no dearth of taboo subjects or social issues in our country. And that provides a lot of fodder for great cinema. Could be anything from pollution to climate change, showcasing other languages as well, not just Hindi, because it's a multilingual country. I guess there should be more opportunities for regional languages in our country, because the kind of cinema like Malayalam cinema or Bengali cinema, Tamil cinema, there are some beautiful gems there. And of course, Hindi is the most popular language by default, but I guess we have to come together as a nation if we also give a lot of importance to other languages. So these could be some subjects like climate change, as I said, pollution, structure of a nation should be showcased on the celluloid. I think that'll be great.
Something you've talked about, I think potentially around the protests that have been going on in India, you talked about the power of young people. Are you optimistic about how young people will transform the country and kind of hold power to account?
Absolutely. I guess India is the youngest country. The average age of a nation is less than 30. So youth is the opinion leader, and we are the ones who are responsible for everything. We can just metamorphose our society and make our country a better place. I'm an optimist. And I guess this pandemic has really brought us closer in a way, because everybody's fighting this common enemy and forgetting everything about our divides or whatever. So I guess it's going to be a different world, a new norm after this pandemic, not just in corporate or other world, in journalistic world. It could be a different kind of cinema also at the same time. I would love to see motivational films that inspire you. This is the time which we got a lot of time to look within, because we are isolated in a way. But now I don't think I would love to show darkness on the celluloid or on the screen. There has to be some great human interest stories which motivate you, inspire you, and give you the impetus to live and be a better person. And if you give that to people, I think that will usher a lot of audience in the theaters.
I wanted to ask you something a bit more personal. The young Bollywood actor Sushant Singh Rajput took his life over the weekend. I know you were friends, and I saw you posted on social media about it. I'm so sorry for your loss. I was wondering if there's any thoughts or words you'd like to share about the situation, or more broadly about raising mental health awareness in India.
Yeah, it is really unfortunate. And I've known him since my TV days. I think we were one of the few actors who have made that shift from television to films in India, which is not easy. And I was quite shocked when I got the news, but I was not in touch with him for the past a year or so. But it is quite shocking, because you never know what's going on behind that smile or social media posts. Ironically, he did a film based on life and giving encouragement to people who are having suicidal thoughts. That was his last film. We need to be close to our families, maybe our friends, and even during isolation, we need to stay connected. That's the basic human need. And I think he had a huge potential, and I was really devastated.
Do you think there needs to be more discussion around mental health in India?
That's the issue. We don't take mental health seriously. In India, we are very callous about it. Till the time there's like a real physical disease, they don't raise an issue about it. They don't realize that a person could be terminally mentally ill, and you just putting up a facade maybe for the outside world. So the need of the hour is to take this very seriously because this pandemic has underlined this issue. And the biggest issue is it's very difficult to gauge. You never know who's going through what. So I guess we have to raise awareness about it, for sure.
Thank you so much for sharing that and for joining us today and sharing your time and thoughts. Really appreciate it.
Thank you, Nana. Thank you so much. Pleasure.
Next, we'll be joined by Time Senior Editor Sean Gregory, who will be speaking with tennis star Naomi Osaka about how athletes are rising to the challenges we all face at this moment.
Thanks, Naina. I'm Sean Gregory, and I'm thrilled to be joined today by two-time Grand Slam champion Naomi Osaka. Naomi, thanks so much for being here.
Well, thank you for having me.
Over the past few weeks, Naomi, you have spoken up in the wake of the death of George Floyd and the protests and hard conversations about race that have followed. You're of both Haitian and Japanese descent. You've lived the experience as a person of color in a sport that, though more diverse now, is still predominantly white. I hate when random people say athletes shouldn't get involved with politics and just entertain, you wrote on Twitter. Firstly, this is a human rights issue. Secondly, what gives you more right to speak than me? By that logic, if you work at IKEA, you're only allowed to talk about the grown lid, which is a sort of sofa. Why have you decided, Naomi, to no longer stick to sports?
I mean, it's not really a conscious decision that I made. I've always been pretty vocal to the people that know me, but I feel like with coronavirus and plus I felt like I should speak my mind more, or more people should kind of know like what I'm thinking. I thought that was very important, and also I felt like coronavirus gave people the chance to like be more aware of what's going on, and I think definitely the protests are getting really big because maybe people are staying home because of corona, and not that many people are like at work or whatever, so I just thought that it was really important.
You've said being asked to sticking to sports is insulting. Why do you say that?
I think it's a bit insulting because everyone has a vote and a say. I think it's really weird that athletes get told to just stick to sports, and it has nothing to do with any other profession. Like, you would never go up to a barber and just say, stick to cutting hair, you know? So I felt like that's always a weird stigma that gets attached, and I don't even know where it comes from.
And in response to Roger Goodell recently, and the commissioner of the NFL showing a video saying he supports NFL players' rights to protest, you said, quote, if the NFL wants to show that they really care, the first thing they should do is take a knee together and give Colin Kaepernick his job back. Why do you think that?
I mean, for me, honestly, I don't really know too much about the NFL. I'm gonna be 100% with you. I just feel like all the media attention that happened, and then everyone sort of backtracking and saying riots aren't the way to go and everyone should peacefully protest, even though that's what he did in the beginning. I felt that was an unfair punishment for someone that was exercising his rights. And I think that if the NFL really wanted to like show where they stood, they would like at least give him a position that he deserves.
And you've been on social media kind of really speaking truths and speaking out. You've called out racism in Japan on Twitter, including a reference to two comedians that said, quote, you need some bleach because you're too sunburned. You went out of your way to say you love Japan and you don't want to give the impression the whole country feels that way. But do you think Japan is ready to take on issues like social justice?
I mean, Japan's a really forward-thinking country. I think everyone just needs to learn what's acceptable and what's not. Sometimes I think it's not really racism, it's just ignorance, but definitely I feel like, I don't know, there's always going to be like a track that everyone wants to go in order to learn and be a better person.
And recently there have been Black Lives Matters protests in Tokyo this Sunday. And people have said in some quarters that protests in the US have also sparked a conversation in Japan about how the Japanese folks treat foreign workers and minority groups in Japan. Are you heartened by this? I mean, what's your reaction to seeing Black Lives Matter gaining visibility in Japan?
For me, I think it's really amazing. I think the fact that one event could trigger things in like all different parts of the world is super cool. And for me, I just think like it's important to have these conversations, whether it makes someone uncomfortable or not. I think that's how you grow and you learn more about the world.
Transitioning a little bit to the Olympics, Naomi, that were supposed to happen in Tokyo this summer. If they go off next summer, what will the Olympics mean to the world and to Japan when they finally happen?
I think it'll mean a lot for sure. I know Tokyo was really ready for this, and it's unfortunate that it's been pushed back a year, but definitely for the health of everyone and for everyone's peace of mind, I think it's really good that they decided so early to push it back. And I know I'm going to be very excited, and all the athletes are definitely looking forward to it.
And Naomi, I know it's difficult to predict the future, especially these days in a pandemic, but is it your sense that the Olympics next year will happen? And if they happen, will there be fans there? What's your sense on that?
I mean, I feel at this point they're probably going to happen. There's probably going to be a lot of precautions, but I don't know. I would say it's like a solid 90% chance that it's going to happen. And I think that even if they don't play with fans, they're still going to attempt to do it.
And why do you think it'll still be special even without fans there?
I mean, for me, I can only speak from my version, but I've never played the Olympics, so just to have it the first time in Tokyo is definitely going to be very special. I think that it's definitely going to go down in the history books if there's no fans as well.
This has been a difficult time with COVID, quarantine for a lot of people. What has been the biggest challenge for you during the quarantine?
The biggest challenge for me is probably answering text messages. I don't know why, but I've gotten more lazy during the quarantine. Even though I don't have anything to do, I've certainly passed the days doing absolutely nothing.
And what have you been doing to stay mentally sharp during this time?
I think to stay mentally sharp, I've just been trying to read a lot. I used to be a really big reader when I was younger, and then I sort of got sucked into the world of TV shows, but I'm slowly starting to do them.
And I know you recently did an Instagram live workout with Venus Williams. How have you been able to tune up your game and stay sharp tennis-wise?
I mean, I've been practicing recently, so there's that. I think tuning up my game tennis-wise, it's more like I'm just trying to get my balance back and tune, I guess, the things that I've been working on before quarantine.
And what are you most looking forward to, Naomi, when tennis comes back?
I think what I'm most looking forward to when tennis comes back is probably the competition. I think all athletes are really competitive, and when there's nothing to compete for, it's a bit boring. So yeah, just like that fight.
Many international players have expressed unease about playing the US Open, which is the first Grand Slam back on the calendar, under restrictions being talked about, such as staying in a bubble outside of Manhattan. Do you plan on playing in the US Open?
I want to play. Of course, I understand all the concern. For me, I'm also concerned. I don't know if they're really prepared for this, and if the rules keep changing, and also if there's going to be another spike, we never know what's going to happen. But for me right now, I'm definitely preparing as if it's going to happen.
And are you, what is there anything you're particularly worried about? What would you be most worried about coming back and playing tennis right now?
I think I would just be worried about traveling, because tennis players have to travel quite often. So just traveling and not knowing if we're allowed to go out or not, things like that.
Naomi, speaking to your success, Forbes recently announced that you were the highest paid female athlete ever, saying you earned $37 million in the last 12 months. So what's it like to hear that about yourself?
Yeah, I mean, for me, it's an amazing accomplishment. I could have never for me, I focus mostly on tennis. I've lately been trying to get into like investing and things like that. But for me, at heart, I'm mostly a tennis player. So just to hear that, it's really cool.
And what does that distinction mean to you, Naomi?
I'm not really sure. Like, I feel like, I don't know. Okay, so I feel like it's a title. It's a really amazing title, but for me, like, the thing that I would like most is to win Grand Slam. So that would come first. But it's also like an added bonus, I would say.
Do you have a number in mind for career Grand Slams you want to win?
I'm going to go by sections. I'm going to go 5 and then 10 and then 15, and hopefully I'll get there.
Because of your unique heritage, you have a huge following across Asia. How has that international fan base helped your career? And do you have a message for your fans about finding hope in a difficult world?
Yeah, I mean, for me, I think it's really amazing because sports, usually people want to focus on someone to cheer for, and you sort of form a bond with that player. So for me, I think given how I look and my culture and the country that I represent, I'm able to like touch a lot of people, and yeah, something that I really take pride in. And I think that given the really difficult circumstances we have right now, and no one really knows what's going to happen in the world, I think that everyone should just try to find something that makes them happy or something that they want to get better at and just keep practicing it. And hopefully by the end of this, or like whenever this happens to finish, we'll all have a new skill.
Naomi, thank you for that message, and thank you for joining us today.
Thank you.
Next, my colleague, East Asia correspondent Charlie Campbell, will be speaking with Ban Ki-moon, 8th Secretary General of the United Nations, about the importance of global collaboration at this precarious time.
Hi everyone, and welcome to this Time 100 talk. I'm Charlie Campbell, East Asia correspondent for Time. I'm delighted today to welcome Mr. Ban Ki-moon, who served as the 8th Secretary General of the United Nations for 2 terms from 2007 to 2016. Mr. Ban, thank you for joining us today. Very grateful for your time.
Thank you. It's a great pleasure, an honor for me to be with you today.
Fantastic. I understand you're in Seoul, Korea at the moment?
Yes, I'm staying at this time in Korea, and I have been staying during last 3 months full, and now it is the 4th month that I have been locked down in Korea. It's quite worrisome that this kind of lockdown continues still, while we are living in a 21st century hyper-connected, interconnected world. I hope that soon we'll be able to freely travel, move around and meet people and talk.
Well, absolutely. I love visiting Seoul myself, and so I look forward to coming over and perhaps meeting you there one day soon. We would love to talk a little bit about the South Korean coronavirus response later on in the conversation, but perhaps to start, you might talk about your Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future, which I understand you set up with an aim of encouraging global citizenship. Why do you think that is so important?
During my 10-year service as a Secretary General of the United Nations, I have met a numerous number of political and economic business leadership and civil society leaders. I'm now going to talk about political leaders of major countries, national leaders. What I have found during the last 10 years is that largely, these political leaders who claim to be global leaders lack a global vision, global citizenship. That is why the first thing I have done was to establish a Ban Ki-moon Center for Global Citizens in Vienna, Austria, where one of the 4 headquarters of the UN is located. And then May last year in Korea, I have established the Ban Ki-moon Foundation for a Better Future. These two organizations carrying my name are mutually reinforcing to promote and raise global citizenship. Global citizens are those who identify as the member of the nation, but instead as a member of humanity more largely. And they look beyond the national borders and narrow prism of national and personal and political interest. Mostly they are engaging in short-term political gains. This is not what we need as leaders. We are very closely interconnected world with a lot of global challenges, like starting with climate change, sustainable development, eradicating abject poverty, global health, like COVID-19. This is something which we have to mobilize a full global citizenship with a compassion and solidarity and sense of unity. But I'm sorry to tell you that largely we are embarrassed that such kind of a global leadership is absent in most of the countries, particularly in one of the most important countries.
Absolutely, because it seems that while you're trying to foster global leadership, there's been a worrisome rise in nationalism across the world and in many countries. How worrying is that for global peace and prosperity?
This global rise in nationalism is deeply concerning and has ushered in a new period of unpredictability and risk that threatens both international peace and security and sustainable development and human rights, and particularly those vulnerable group of people. Populist skepticism and anger on globalization, institutions, experts, even on science, and also the very facts, has fueled many of the seismic geopolitical changes we have witnessed in recent years. This included notably, I'm sorry to say this, President Donald Trump of the United States, and Brexit in the European Union, and some yellow vest in France. And there are many such leaders. Such events share many underlying connective threads, such as frustration with inequality, manifestations of xenophobia, and the resurgence of nationalism. And as nationalism spread, continue to grow, make electoral gains around the world, a whole new set of challenges has emerged. Trade wars. The free trade is hindered and hurting the global economy. Refugees and migrants. We have more than 75 million refugees and migrants. This is the highest number since the end of the Second World War. Human rights are being undercut, and the critical multilateral institutions and agreements are at risk, like the climate change agreement. These dynamics are making it harder to resolve the conflicts. At a time when we need the solidarity and unity much more than we are losing our capacity, our limited capacity to handle all global issues.
And of course, during your time in charge of the UN, you sought to combat global challenges such as climate change, spearheading initiatives such as the Paris Climate Agreement. The US has withdrawn from the Paris Pact and has announced its intention to defund the WHO. It has withdrawn from the UN Human Rights Council, and at the moment there's a growing momentum towards even withdrawing from the World Trade Organization. How damaging is US disengagement from global affairs? Are we reaching a crisis point?
United States is the most powerful in every aspect, every standard, and the most resourceful. And the United States has been leading this world, particularly since the end of Second World War, with the fundamental values enshrined in the Charter of the United Nations, that is peace and global peace and security, and sustainable, equitable development, and also human rights for all. Now, embarrassingly, we are seeing some absence of American leadership since the administration of Donald Trump began. Now, United States has withdrawn from United Nations Human Rights Commission. American people leadership has been based on universal human rights, and they have withdrawn from UNESCO. They have also withdrawn from a major international agreement, starting from Paris Climate Change Agreement and the JCPOA, Iranian nuclear deals, and they have also canceled this INF, intermediate nuclear forces. I am very much afraid to say that at the time American leadership is most needed, Americans are now backtracking from this kind of world challenges.
Absolutely, but I mean, some of the criticism which has been leveled at international institutions such as the UN from President Trump, is there any validity in those criticisms? Is there a real argument that these international institutions need to be reformed?
International organizations can be as effective and strong as much as the member states support them. There is a clearly lack of resources. Only member states' financial and technical support can United Nations Secretary General or Director General WHO can work to address all these global challenges, including pandemic and peace and security in many conflict zones, and protect those vulnerable group of people whose human rights are being abused. Now, the United States and China, they are two great powers in terms of economy as well as in terms of military, and they respect their status as such. They are, but now they are now at confronting each other, and I sincerely hope that United States, particularly as a global #1 global power, should lead this world with much more reasonable and active support for the organization. And I don't think it is fair to criticize the WHO. WHO is one of the specialized agencies, 16 specialized agencies, and they are focusing on global health and security. Now, after 4 months of pandemic erupted, the Security Council has never been able to take any single decision because of a confrontation between United States and China. This is sad. They should feel the sense of global responsibility to be recognized as a global leader. Global leadership cannot just stay there. They should lead by example.
Other than serving as foreign minister, you were also formerly chief national security advisor to the South Korean president, and both roles involved working closely in North Korea. President Trump has switched from a hostile approach to Kim Jong-un to unprecedented engagement. But in recent months, Pyongyang has resumed firing rockets. Is engagement still the correct course?
I think diplomacy will be the best approach, dealing with North Korean nuclear issues and the reconciliation between the South and North Korea. As while the first year of President Trump was very dangerous relationship between North Korea and the United States, and there was nothing, no movement even between South and North Korea. The robust Republic of Korea Security Cooperation and maintenance of the UN Security Council sanctions, etc., has really helped to maintain the stability of the Korean Peninsula until this time. Now, with the 3 times of summit meeting, one-on-one meeting with Chairman Kim Jong-un of North Korea, President Trump has been able to make a good contribution. But at this time, unfortunately, by just granting just the one-on-one summit 3 times with the President Trump and Kim Jong-un, perhaps playing to his ego and penchant for pageantry, Kim Jong-un seems to have succeeded in acquiring the de facto nuclear status. This is something which I am very much worried. The United States has been changing their position when it comes to denuclearization. First, they said the CVID, complete, verifiable, irreversible denuclearization. Then now, sometimes they change it FFVD, and the President Trump has been saying that it's okay that they are testing some small range missiles. It cannot reach the American continent. It's not only the security and safety of American continent. It is the safety and security and threat to whole humanity once North Korea uses nuclear weapons. It is known fact that they have already stockpiling at least 20 to 60 nuclear weapons in their own hands. And they have never declared, even though they declared and signed with the President Moon Jae-in in Panmunjom in 2018 that they would adhere to denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. But they have never implemented that agreement. That is why we are very much worried about this. And this is much to the detriment to the long-established and collective efforts by the international community, including the UN Security Council, to achieve denuclearization of the Korean Peninsula. At this time, now I'm particularly worried that North Korea's recent resumption of missile testing, that is quite concerning, and may foretell a glimpse of renewed tensions ahead. But I'm also encouraged by the fact that the diplomatic process technically remains open and has not collapsed completely.
Your country, South Korea, had a very robust technology-driven response to the coronavirus pandemic, building on its quite frightful experience with the MERS epidemic when it was the second worst hit country after Saudi Arabia. Is it possible, do you think, to strengthen global institutions to build on a South Korean coronavirus response to perhaps create a blueprint to...
Of course, Korea is ready to share with other members of international community the expertise, know-how, and experiences. Korea's recent history with the pandemic disease dealing with SARS in 2002 and the MERS in 2015 has undoubtedly better prepared for us to combat COVID-19. Mask wearing has already been ingrained in the lives of Korean people, but the government's very aggressive response related to what they call 3 T's, like testing and tracing and treatment, has been particularly effective in keeping cases, hospitalizations, and death relatively low. Now, that's why Korean government is actively seeking to exchange our experience, shared experience and know-how with other developing countries. As a former Secretary General, I joined many former global leaders, urging G20 leaders, and I signed it, to do much more for Global South in Africa, in other countries where they would not have capacity. They would not have even the capacity to test the relatively low numbers of patients and death numbers are because of their inability to check, verify. And therefore, Korea is now ready to work with the United Nations and WHO, and I believe that there are many lessons to be learned that could be replicated from the lessons of the Korean people. But I can caution you that there is no such one size fits all. But at least we can share our experiences.
Of course, and it seems that countries with populist leaders, looking at the US and Brazil, seem to have suffered disproportionately badly during this coronavirus pandemic. A lot of these populist leaders take aim at international institutions like the UN. Why do you think there is such a rise of populism across the globe at the moment?
As I said earlier, attacks on the UN or international organizations are nothing new. Now they are using the anger of people on the ground. This is quite worrisome. The rise of populist nationalism over the last few years has dovetailed with anger at institutions, globalizations, inequality, and perceived demographic threat as a result of migration and refugee issues. Because the global leaders have not done enough for all those helpless people who have to flee their country for a better opportunity. Then there is only a rise of anger. That is the problem now. Now, opportunistic leaders and politicians in the United States and Europe and Southeast Asia and Latin America have exploited these convergences, as well as other related climate action and gender inequality, to frame globalism related to, and the United Nations the proxy as an enemy to nationhood and the traditional values. Sadly, levels of xenophobia, racism, anti-Semitism, and sexism have dangerously increased all over the world in tandem. Now, despite such disheartening developments, we must always remember that global problems require global solution. There is not a single country or individual, however powerful, however resourceful one may be, can handle these global problems at this time.
On top of your work at the UN, you were also a South Korean foreign minister and a diplomat, and you have postings in New Delhi, in Vienna, and Washington, D.C., I understand. The current Trump administration advocates a policy of America first, but insists it does not mean America alone. As a former diplomat, do you find that reassuring? Is it possible to have both?
I'm also very worried and concerned about this country first, like America first policies like that. We are living in a small planet Earth, hyper interconnected one. There is no place where we cannot reach within 24 hours by airplanes. That is a matter of a second, fraction of a second. We can communicate like we are doing now. Then when only one country wants to live alone, then that means that this country will fail. Since the election of President Donald Trump in 2016 and 17, I'm afraid that this America First policy has in fact isolated the United States on the global stage. And in practice, does not look more like America alone. The US has decided from all this major global agreement, which I have already elaborated. This is really a serious problem, and I'm really urging American leadership to really look back what has happened, what is now happening in global world. When there is an absence of American leadership, there will be more nationalism and more terrorism and more abuse of human rights, more regional conflicts. Make no mistake. Other powers such as China and Russia are also taking notes very seriously and trying to fill the political vacuum where the United States would be out of this scene, then I'm really urging U.S. should look at this situation very, very seriously. International cooperation is the glue that binds everybody together. Nationalism and protectionism are simply not viable alternatives to cooperation and partnership.
And the latest sort of area of dispute between Beijing and Washington is the status of semi-autonomous Hong Kong and the ambition there of new national security legislation and some debates over its continued economic special status. Do you think that an international institution like the UN could help mediate disputes like this, or is that beyond its reach?
I hope that UN Secretary General Antonio Guterres will be able to play a certain role in this very worrisome situation between two big powers, China and the United States. I have been closely monitoring the current situation in Hong Kong with a great concern as a former Secretary General. And as one of the global citizens, the acute political confrontation between the United States and China is another worrisome example of the nationalism falling apart. First of all, it is of utmost importance that the current situation be resolved in a peaceful manner and that Hong Kong continues to enjoy and prosper, to advance under the one country, two systems framework. That means Hong Kong's autonomy should not be undermined. Freedom of expression and freedom of assembly should be guaranteed. At the same time, any expression of their anger or whatever through a demonstration should be carried out in a peaceful way without disrupting law and order. At the same time, basic human rights of the millions of Hong Kong citizens should be respected. I sincerely hope that there is a time for both China and the United States to engage in each other, and they should take more prudent action before taking any unilateral measure.
Mr. Ban, I'm afraid we're out of time, but thank you so much for joining us at Time today. It's been a fascinating discussion, and I hope we can talk again soon and lockdown lifts and you're able to continue your travel and your work around the regions.
Thank you very much for this opportunity. I hope we'll be able to meet in person and engage in more dialogue in the next possible future. Thank you very much.
I look forward to it. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Bye-bye.
Thank you, Charlie. And thank you so much, Ban Ki-moon, for joining us and for underscoring those crucial points about the need for greater collaboration across the world, global cooperation. And now we'll be joined again by Monsta X. In a moment, they have another special performance for us. But first, they want to offer, in their own words, some thoughts about their hopes for peace and justice in the world.
We are very excited to take part in this important event, an event that connects people from all over the world.
As UN ambassadors for Sustainable Goal 16, we stand for peace and justice. As such, we have supported Black Lives Matter activism, and we believe that it's time to acknowledge the issue and fix it.
In addition, with this COVID-19 going around a long time, we truly appreciate and respect all the medical workers and related staff who are sacrificing themselves during this difficult period.
Please take care, stay positive, and we believe that we can and we'll get through this together.
We want to thank our Monbebe for supporting us through everything. Without you guys, we would have never been here today.
We love you, Monbebe, and we pray for peaceful days of love, justice, and health.
Maybe this is crazy, crazy just to want we can live it down. We all wanna be someone, wanna be someone, someone we can live without. So completely perfect, perfect with no reasons, reasons up for people you're meant to lose. Someone full of secrets, secrets in the shadows, shadow reading skills with breaking through. But is there someone to give it all? We all wanna be someone, wanna be someone, someone with somebody we can live it down. We all wanna be someone, wanna be someone, someone we can live it down. Someone we can live it down. Someone we can live it down.
Thank you, Monsta X, for that great performance and for sharing your music with us today and your words and hopes for the future. I'd also like to thank all of our guests for being with us on the program today. And I want to thank our partner, DBS, who has made today's program focused on the Asia Pacific region possible. We'll be back tomorrow with another Time 100 Talks program, this one focused on the future of work and how we build the businesses of tomorrow. If you'd like more information on that talk or any past or future Time 100 Talks, just visit time.com/Time100 Talks. Again, thanks for being with us and see you next time.